That's something you'll never take, no debate. It's gotta be in you to endure the hate and elevate. If I love you, then we gon' eat, even if we share the plate. Strive for greatness and try to be more like Harris Bank, youngest Zach. Whoever at the top, we coming next. Don't care what it is, we conquer all with no regrets. It's no wonder when we come on your set, they show respect. I don't overstep, we taking off like Boeing jets. You know the rep, and if you don't, you better ask about me. I done made it to that skyline, I seen out of Abla housing. Got goals and accomplishments, the new chick I got arousing. She say she don't drink it yet, every cup I pour she downing. Maybe cause she think I'm scouting every season, cuffing season. I won't do you dirty unless you take me to the cleaners. I'll be sure to show each and every reason before I leave you, guaranteed to make you rethink your actions and start believing I got. That's something no one.
Hello. Today I want to talk briefly a little bit about microaggressions. I know a lot of people are getting confused about those, so I'm going to just real briefly have a little introduction on what microaggressions is and how it can impact mental health of people of color, and it can devastate a potential counseling session. Microaggressions, to define it, is the commonplace verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities which intentionally or unintentionally can communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative slights, usually racial slights and insults to people of color. Okay. They come in verbal manifestations, nonverbal manifestations, and environmental manifestations. There are basically three types of microaggressions, and they are micro assaults, micro insults, and micro invalidations, right? The thing is, a lot of people say, well, that's not their intention to do a micro assault or microaggressions or micro insults, but their intentions has nothing to do with it. It's how the person interprets it, the targeted person interprets it. And one of the reasons they're called microaggressions is not to belittle their impact or what they mean, but usually it's feel like a personal attack. Macro is more the systemic and environmental things, but a micro, like in level sense, is more personal, you and the individual. So let me explain basically each one of those three and kind of give you, understanding what you might be able to, so you get a better understanding of how that goes. A micro assault are usually conscious, and a micro assault is an explicit racial derogatory characterization primarily by a violent, verbal, nonverbal, environmental attack meant to hurt the intended victim through name calling, avoiding behavior, or purposeful discriminatory actions. Usually racial epithets are used. So it's like, the thing is that you know the person's intention because they're very overt, and an understanding of what the person was intending and that what their feelings were. Micro insults, on the other hand, are usually unconscious, and they are things that communicate, that convey rudeness and insensitivity and demean a person's racial heritage. And some of the components of that is an description of intelligence, assigning a degree of intelligence to a person's color based on their race. Okay, so if you say something like, all Asians do extremely well in math, and you think that that's, a compliment where a person who's Asian might take offense to that, that's a microaggression because you're, signing a description of their intelligence based off their race, or thinking that someone who's of African descent, especially of African American descent, is incapable of doing STEM. Second-class citizenship, where they're treated as a lesser person or group. You can see this when incidents where you just feel that because of the person's race or their ethnic heritage, that they don't belong in a certain section. You have stories of people of African descent or other minorities getting ready to load up, go on a plane, and they're going into the first class section, and other individuals, questioning, do they know exactly where they're supposed to be? Are they in the right line? Because this is the first class section. That is treating a person like a second class citizenship, like they couldn't afford to be in first class and they're in the wrong section. Pathologizing of cultural values or communication styles. Notion that the values and the communication styles of people of color are abnormal. This is when you're looking at certain things that are in a culture and you're putting it down, saying stuff like this is too ghetto. I remember in the movie Black Klansman, the main character, Mr. Washington, he said that the reason when he had David Duke on the phone, David Duke made the comment that, oh, you could tell a black person when they're on the phone because they roll their R's, right? So what you're doing is you pathologizing the person's communication styles. Assumption of criminal status. Assumed to be a criminal, dangerous, or deviant based off a person's race. This is usually done not just exclusively to this, but if a black male gets on the elevator and it's like already a white female on there and she clutches her purse, or if you're driving and you see a group of black teens or Latino teens and you assume that they're up to no good or they must be in a gang, right? So that's assumption of criminal status. The third and final type that I would like to discuss is called microaggressions. And microaggressions are communications that exclude, neglect, nullify the psychological thoughts, feelings, or experiential reality of a person of color. Some examples of this is when an alien in your own land, when you make a person an alien in your own land, the belief that visible racial or ethnic minority citizenships are foreign. If you see someone and you asking them where they're from, kind of giving the message there's no way you are truly an American. Color blindness, denial or pretense that a white person does not see color. This is one of my favorites when a white person says, I don't see color. I usually say something like, yeah, I could tell by the way you're dressed. But what you're doing is you're denying that person's characteristics. The intentions might be good because you're saying that, the color is not impacting the way you want to treat a person, but you also are, denying that person's race or ethnicity, and that could be bad. What you're basically saying is that you're not normal like me, so I'm gonna pretend like you're normal by pretending I don't see what makes you abnormal, which is your race. Myth of meritocracy. Meritocracy is when you assume that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and when you accept that myth, you're giving a indication that because of that person's color or race, they're not going to be able to do something. And what you're doing is that you're assuming that race plays no role whatsoever in a person's success, or it plays a minor role in a person's success, that all things are really equal and on a playing field of it's equal, and that everyone has a fair shot, and their race or gender doesn't have any type of indications on a person's success, or it's very minimal. And that's the myth of meritocracy. Denial of individual racism, when you deny personal racism or one's role in perpetration of racism. I think in a sense that many of us have some part in the systemic issues of racism. And if you are denying, you're kind of denying the fact that you have an initial thing. So microaggressions, the thing is what you got to remember is, are more than just insults. They're more than just insensitive comments, and they're more than just generalized jerky behavior. They're key elements that communicate harmful, neglectful, and negate a person's identity. There's something very specific, the kinds of remarks, questions, or actions that are painful because they have to do with a person's membership in a group that's discriminated against or subject to stereotypes. Key part of what makes them so disconcerting is that they happen casually, frequently and often, without any harm intended in just everyday life. And what happens is a person will try to explain it to another person, and sometimes they get the response of they try to tell it to their counselor. Sometimes the counselor might say something like, "Do you think you're being so sensitive? Could that mean something else?" And try to explain instead of validating what the person is going through. You're trying to validate the person's reality and the person's experiences. You immediately try to change the subject and make the person feel like they're interpreting situations wrong, or you immediately try to tell them that it's another situation, that you have another explanation. So those type of things are things that we have to be careful of as counselors or colleagues or friends when a person's telling us about their reality and their experiences when it comes to things like racial microaggressions. Again, this is Dr. Malik Raheem. And like I said, if you like the video, please click the video and be trying to put out many more of these, trying to give you a sense of some of the things that are going on when it comes to multiculturalism and social justice in the field of clinical mental health counseling and clinical rehabilitation counseling, and try to help everybody understand some of the key terms that are happening and some of the key issues that are happening. You like it, click the thumbs up button, and also subscribe and ring the bell. So until next time, you take care, and I'll be talking to you soon.